Sure. Thanks for having me, team. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everything you guys are up to in construction and running the world the way that you do. I'm Molly. I work for Habitat International with US Construction, and my title is technically Manager of Resilience in the Built Environment. But what that really means is I manage a lot of money and funding programs that incentivize climate resilient construction. So that would be, we generally think of climate resilience as energy efficiency, hazard resilience, and indoor air quality. So my primary job is actually balancing what you all are actually doing out there and want more money for, and what corporate and federal dollars want to do. So a lot of times that doesn't exactly match up. So my job is to balance those two things and get as much money out working in the way that it makes the most sense for you guys. While also kind of promoting what Chris had been talking about earlier, which is the idea of access to clean energy technology and the kinds of construction methods and materials that reduce the cost of operations for the family going forward, so that we can kind of preserve long-term affordability through that mechanism. So there's very little that we can affect once the family has purchased the house and they're out there in the world living their lives. We can't affect the cost of medicine. We can't affect food. We can't affect clothing, the cost of education, anything like that. But what we can do is make some design decisions on the front end that can actually affect how much it costs to run the house in the long term. And then we want to balance that with our upfront cost of construction too. So that's the trick, is to figure out how to make all of that happen. No problem. I am at HFHA now, but I'm based in Minnesota, and I started out as an AmeriCorps construction person at a small rural affiliate in Minnesota, and we were facing this huge code change. We were going from like 0 to 60 as far as energy efficiency is concerned, and I mention this because yes, there's the kind of stewardship of our responsibility to the family and keeping the cost short. But there's also like our sustainability as a construction program. And when most of the affiliates in Minnesota were not prepared for that code thing. And the bottom line is we built less houses for the next 3 years because we weren't prepared for that change in construction costs. So ever since then, I've tried to make it my job to help habitats figure out how to navigate that cost curve sooner rather than later, so we're never hit with anything like that again. So I started in 2007 at the rural affiliate, West Central Minnesota. Then I moved to Habitat Minnesota and sort of navigated the code change world and a bunch of funding incentives that were coming down from the feds to do super energy efficient construction. So I was there for 10 years, and then I went to Twin Cities Habitat for a year to work in their repair program. Super bummed that I missed this repair summit, because repairs are actually like, that's my bread and butter. I came from the for-profit construction world doing repairs, and it's very exciting. There's more to it than new construction, and then I came here to HFHI, and now I'm doing what I'm about to show you here. So this is super informal. Everybody just break in whenever you want. If you see something that your affiliate is doing and you want to talk about how it's working on your job site, that's the most important thing for everybody to hear. Like, I can come in with what I know about what's happening in the world, but it matters more if somebody who's kind of by you has experience with it, like in your climate zone or in your build market or something like that. So don't feel free to interrupt me. I just start talking, as you can probably imagine. So Lindsay or Chris, if you guys want to monitor the hand raising and stuff, and maybe the chat, and just say, Molly, stop for a second. It's very hard to offend me, so don't worry about that.
Will do.
I am going to try to share my screen. Oh, I always forget to close windows before this happens. All right, please say that you can see the one that says Zero Energy Ready, Zero Energy, Spring 2024.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let me try and get that into presentation mode. All right. So the thing I like to start with, read these at your own leisure. You're going to have access to this deck. But what I really want to call out is when it comes to the funding parts of this, there are really specific definitions that are in federal legislation that if you don't do them, then you don't get access to the money. So the reason I'm saying that is because this net zero emissions building is a super popular definition right now. And the real key part here is powered solely by renewable sources. So this net zero emissions building definition is showing up in all of the new federal funding, which is trickling down to state funding, which is trickling down to foundation funding, all through this Inflation Reduction Act money that I'll talk about later. Um, but the reason it matters is because a lot of us don't have access to cheap electric, and fossil fuel like natural gas and sometimes LP is way cheaper until you add solar. Heating hot water with gas is just cheaper. So but you can't do that if you're trying to access some of this federal funding. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we're going to talk about a lot of ways to sort of get there at your own pace. But if you want some of this new money that's going to be available probably starting in about fall of this year, you're going to have to start thinking about like phasing completely off of fossil fuel, just from a funding perspective. Now, there are lots of funding sources that can help you get there at a pace that matters to you, but I just wanted to make sure that that's in front of you. And zero over time emissions, that is going to refer specifically to retrofit work. So if you're doing owner occupied repairs, or if you're doing acquisition rehab, that's a little bit more flexible than the powered solely by renewable sources thing. The zero over time emissions is just kind of getting there gradually, but it doesn't apply to new construction. It only applies to repairs and rehabs. So this
Can I
is
ask
going to be
a
like,
question of
yeah.
the group? Has anybody not switched to entirely electric?
That would have been a cool way for me to start. Could have
So
saved us a lot of time.
everybody had. No, I'm just curious. I mean, it's um, I was surprised how many people haven't. So the
Good
affiliates
to
here
know.
have all switched to electric.
You guys are
Thanks.
you guys are well positioned. All right, let's just get into it. Um, so the other thing about this, about the funding sources, not just the federal one, but a lot of them are tied to specific certifications, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what I really want to underscore is that just getting to net zero, that's not about a certificate. That's just about the cool stuff that we're going to look at today. And these are the top level things to pay attention to when you're just trying to reduce the energy cost, like not thinking about funding, not thinking about certifications, just about good construction. So the number one thing has nothing to do with renewable energy or anything like that. It just has to do with building a super low energy building. That's it. Because then when it comes time to add solar, you can put a super small system on and save some money that way. So it's really just about dialing in the efficiency of your baseline house to get that as low as it can go. A huge part of that low as it can go piece is air tightness. Very, very tight houses is something that you'll see very common across all zero energy buildings. And so when you do that, then dialing in your ventilation system is super important there. And we'll look at that a little bit. Even if you're not ready to go, well, you guys are already all electric, so we're going to skip that part already. But the accommodation of future solar is a very low upfront cost. If you're not already doing these three things right here, it doesn't cost that much to start doing them, and you're setting the house itself up for a super easy install of solar later. And I will say that the primary thing is this conduit, just a PVC pipe from the roof to the mechanical room that'll let your electrician just run the wires instead of having to fish them. Because even in new construction, it's like 3 billable hours right there. But this is 20 minutes. So super small upfront investment. Gets you a big return when it comes time to add the solar. So taking a cue from Chris, is there anyone currently who is not doing those three things, like setting themselves up for solar, or maybe anyone who's is everybody here doing solar, or let's start there. Colleen, you are, I see a thumbs up. Mike and Tina in Lebanon, are you guys doing solar?
Here at Orange County, we're doing solar.
As of now, I mean, we've looked that direction, but we haven't actually done any construction for it.
Gotcha. And yeah, I know Orange County, you guys are pretty much all of California. You sort of have to. What about you, Mike? Mike L.
No, we looked into it on our last project we just completed. And I believe when we start our next house, we're gonna look into having it adapted so future they can put it in,
Nice.
but they'll have
Yeah.
the base of the power structure there that they'll be able to put the solar on top and be able to run the batteries down to it is what we're looking on for
Nice.
our next build.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, no matter where the future solar comes from, making it such that, you know, it'll just be super easy for the family to put on is a good investment up front. So
And
here's a little bit,
also,
yeah, go
if
for it.
if you're doing the super efficient building, you want to be kind of jealous of who gets to poke holes in your structure. So if you're in control of that by making it solar ready, you're not losing all the efficiencies that you fought so hard to get at the beginning.
That is a really good point because nobody owns a hole. Sparky doesn't own a hole. Your HVAC guy doesn't own that hole. Your plumber doesn't own any holes. So the more control you have over what gets poked in your envelope, the better. That's a really good point. So we're basically just going to take kind of all of the things from this slide in order on the next couple slides. So starting with let me get rid of that, the high efficiency mechanicals piece. So I feel like a lot of folks out on the West Coast and inland a bit from the West are already familiar with mini splits. Is that feeling correct? Is that a good, solid feeling? So I don't have to sell you on the beauty of a mini split, but for those of you who might not be familiar, if you're listening in, basically it doesn't need to use energy to move energy. It only uses refrigerant. So you can actually get efficiencies that are higher than 100. So you can put in a small amount of energy and get out a lot of energy, whether it's in heating or in cooling or anything like that. So it's a big air conditioner. It's a small air conditioner that can move both directions. It can move in heating mode and cooling mode. It's a very good idea for low-income construction because of that high efficiency. Now it's a steeper upfront cost. So, and you're going to want to make sure that you've got techs that are familiar with it and can come service it, like real familiar with it. So that it's kind of like a knowledge-based thing, but it is a very good piece of equipment, super efficient, runs on all electric. There's a couple of ways that you can duct it. You can use a little head right here, put one or two of those in with some transfer fans to make sure that the conditioned air goes where it wants to go. You can have a ducted system. You can put these on a ducted system if you want, but you're going to want to make sure to have that ducted system in a conditioned space so that it's tucked in real nice and doesn't lose any energy to the outside. Here's just a couple more high efficiency mechanical options that you'll see in colder climates. This is a combination system. You can see it's still running on fossil fuel, but it's easy to convert that over to electric should you need to. So this is in-floor heat, also runs the domestic water, hot water system, all from this boiler right here. These are all Habitat houses, by the way. This is an electric boiler. It's 9 kW, runs the whole house real nicely. Same system as this. It's just electric instead of gas. And then over in this corner, I don't know if you guys are seeing my, can you see me move this around? Boop, 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 boop. Okay, I'll move this out of the way then. Here we've got some heat pump water heaters. So this is kind of a newer thing. It is, again, more expensive and you're going to need to find somebody to install it, but it operates on the same idea as the mini split heat, the one we looked up over here, the heat pump. It just moves heat from one place to another. It doesn't need to use energy to move energy. There are some tricky bits with this in colder climates, kind of where you put it, how you deal with the condensate. If you're not already doing this and you've got solutions, please let me know. And if you want to do this and you want to know about solutions, also let me know, because Colorado, Minnesota, a couple Michigan affiliates have been working with it. So they've got solutions, but they're really still trying to like tweak it. Because again, it's not new, but it's new-ish for normal construction. Meaning like not super, super high-end stuff and not European stuff.
Yeah, I think we're interested. I think we, after the affiliate conference, have decided we should only put heat pump water heaters in going forward, but are trying to figure out how to navigate that. Hoping we have room in the current build, but going forward, we'll definitely be including them.
Yeah, the room thing is an important consideration, because they need an amount of space, because what they do is they take the heat from the surrounding air and use that to heat the water inside the tank and to keep it hot, for that matter. So like even the smallest ones need like 450 square feet of open space around them in some cases. So like if you're not already doing a mechanical room, it's like you've got yours in a closet, because I know sometimes in California you'll see that, or you'll see them out in a garage. There are considerations with that. Like it pays to work with somebody who knows how to install those and who really understands that. Once you get it in, once you get around the curve, super low cost way to heat and keep your water warm.
They actually do produce a little bit of cooling wherever they're mounted because of the processes they're going through.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. As you can imagine, they're dumping out the cool, and you will be able to feel that. They're also dumping out water, and it can be a little bit tricky. Does anyone? I couldn't see who said that. I feel like it was Mike.
That was
Lebanon,
me,
Mike.
yeah.
Okay. Where do you put it, and what's your setup look like?
But we actually, at least I come from a commercial plumbing background, so that's where I have exposure to those.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But so far, at least in our, surprisingly enough, I talked to the plumber on our latest house that we went through, and they really tried to dissuade me from a heat pump water heater. I don't remember exactly what the reasoning was. I think it had to do with maintenance, but anyway, it was an interesting look at those. But they are highly efficient.
Yeah, I mean, just like our construction committees and guys who have been around since the affiliate started, there are going to be people who don't want to do a new thing, or who think it's too putsy. Because I'm not going to lie, some of them are putsy. Like you can get a good one, and you can get one that'll just never stop giving you problems, which again is probably a good reason to get a couple of different subs in to give you their 2 cents on that. All right, that's probably all we need to do there, but keep the conversation going if you've got ideas. Maybe I could like minimize this, but then I won't see you guys anymore. I'll see you again when we're all done. Oh, I also want to keep track of the time. I know I've got a limited amount of time here, so right on. Okay, so the other thing that to go along with this heat pump water heater, hard to underscore how many gains you can make in efficiency by reducing your hot water runs. And it's a tough one for Habitat affiliates, because it involves like your plumber and your draft person, and a lot of affiliates don't have like options for either one of those. So sometimes this doesn't work, but if you can reduce the amount of the hot water runs, you will see a huge jump in your in the efficiency of your building. Like if you model it in an energy modeling system, it will ask you like, how long is your longest run? If you can get that down to like what you're seeing here on this side, this whole plumbing system here, the hot water distribution system takes up, it takes up 0.08% of the square footage. And this is a Habitat house. I think it was San Joaquin Valley, but it might be SLO County. You can chime in if this was you, because I can't quite remember which one it was, but one of those two affiliates got it down to a very, very tight hot water plumbing wall right there for the hot water.
I
So
I don't 100% know, but I do believe based on where, because it is 2-story, but based on where all the plumbing, and I'm not in construction, but my husband is, so I know a little bit, but based on where everything was, I think everything is really tight. It's not this image.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yes. Yep.
yeah, you guys are working with a guy named Gary Klein, who's like this huge guru, and he's a super good friend of Habitat. So if anyone in the room is interested in trying to work this out for your affiliate, I'll connect you directly with Gary and you guys can start sorting out how to make this happen. The other way that this works out really well is by using this plumbing manifold system. So I don't know how many of you guys are using PEX right now. That's totally going to be up to your plumber, but pretty sweet system, as a matter of fact. And we have in the past had a relationship with Uponor, which is the primary people who make that system. I don't know where that's at right now. I should probably check into it. But if you're not already using this central manifold, it's a really very elegant, sweet way to kind of reduce your hot water runs. And then, of course, low flow plumbing fixtures, which pretty much it's hard to find. Well, you can, if you're still getting your stuff from the restore, no shade, but it's not likely to be low flow. But if you put in the low flow fixtures and you put in the good quality ones, not the crappy ones that the homeowner is going to disable right away, you'll see some efficiency gains there. All right. So third-party testing, this is the air tightness piece, and I super apologize. We were chatting beforehand. I had a conversation like this with Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa like a couple weeks ago, and I should have checked in with you guys to see who had the best air tightness, but I forgot to do that beforehand. So what you're seeing now is a northern Minnesota affiliate who in the last, I think 6 months had a 0.9 ACH 50, which you don't need to know everything that means, but just know the lower the number, the tighter the house. And that code right now for their area is 3 air changes per hour. So they've just dusted that. Anybody in the room familiar?
We hit 0.36 on our last fourplex. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one.
You should be, man. Flush the toilet and the doors will slam shut in that house.
Yeah,
right
that came
there.
out of being in Berg. So our board has directed us for some time to be 1 or lower. But the building before that was our affiliate's first multifamily attempt, and I took over partway through that one. And we struggled to hit code at the time for multifamily, which was 5 on that one. So we learned a lot struggling through that one, and really made a point of emphasis to get it down. And again, that's part of our push towards passive, right? Because passive got to be 0.6, and there was a lot of lessons from the first ones, from the first 8plex to be able to score the 4plex at this one.
Did you find that it was trickier on the multiplex than it was on a single family, or just kind of the same problems that you ran into?
Definitely trickier. Because we have to incorporate the firewall, which takes precedence over everything, right? So you had to be sheeting to sheeting and foundation to sheeting, and that we really struggled. That's where we were losing a lot, and that's where we lost a lot on the first one. We did the smoke tests and all of that, and some of it was product choice, like windows on the first one. Even though we were doing triple pane, they were doing sliders because it was the least expensive. But we could watch those sliders flex during the blower door test, And so
Ugh,
we switched to
frustrating.
casement windows on the second one. So you know, yes, it costs more, but why invest in triple pane if you're just gonna blow it out, right? Like and so it's
Exactly.
that next little bit. If we're gonna invest this much, why not invest a little more? And uh, we did the heat loss calcs, the energy modeling, and we're sure that the buyback is there. It's just
Hmm.
um, it takes more work to line up additional funding on the front end. But yeah, I know we were pretty proud of that.
That is a really, really good number. Second, the window situation though, it is there, the two major things with windows. I mean, triple pane is great because that'll slow the movement of heat just through the window itself. It's like basically it's a better insulated glass. But it doesn't stop the drafts. And the drafts are actually where you get your complaints from too. And it's where you lose a lot of your energy. So a triple pane window that's installed poorly, like without all of this nonsense around the edges right here, that nonsense is what stops the draft and what turns a good window into a great window. And similarly with what Chris was talking about, like the double hungs or single hungs, that's basically 4 edges of air leakage and then another 3 edges of air leakage up here. Whereas with a casement window, you just have the 4 and it can seal tighter. So casements are the window of choice for the discriminating passive house builder. And they are going to cost you a little bit more. But again, as Chris mentioned, like if you're investing and that's your goal, then it pays to raise a little. It costs, but pays. Some of your other
Yeah,
primary. Yeah,
we've had
go
to
for it.
change terminology from affordable housing isn't cheap, right? And because to be long term affordable, and it's hard we've had to educate vendors because
Mhm.
we're looking at a window bid now and it's not apples to apples because the one is trying to save us money, and then reverts back to the sliders and all of that. And it's like, no, it's I appreciate that, but that's not what we're trying to do. And
Yeah.
so it does take some effort.
Mm-hmm. Well, I could go on. And does anybody else want to share? Does anybody else have like an airtightness triumph or a lesson learned? Want to pop in? I could talk about this all day. This is the super fun stuff. Just to note, here are some primary culprits. Of course, your attic hatch. These pictures were taken with an infrared camera, which reads surface temperature. So you hook up the blower door, and you suck all the air out of the house. Or maybe if you're in Southern California or Hawaii, you're actually pressurizing the house, whatever. The point is you're creating a pressure difference and seeing where that air is getting in and out. And recessed light fixtures and attic hatches and habitat houses are like always problematic. And then over here, you can see a couple examples of affiliates that are really taking advantage of that volunteer labor and just getting them all kinds of messy with this acoustical sealant and all of this Dow foam. And they're never going to be able to wear those shirts in public again, but they can come back on the job site anytime.
Yeah, and we need to get Dow donating again because we're just about out of our cans of sealant from them, and we have to start paying for it. But yeah, the volunteer component's huge to this because um, they take pride in chasing the leaks, and I don't have to pay
Mm-hmm.
somebody to do it. So that, and one of ours built our because we identified the attic access as one of the problem areas. So he took it upon himself to build air sealed ones for us, and
Oof,
that was pretty awesome with the weather stripping and
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, get an OCD nerd to like mass produce those kinds of things for you, or to go up and, well, if you're using recessed lights, go up and foam the cans in a way that's compliant with their warranty, of course. Any other air sealing tips and tricks that anybody has and wants to share? boop, I'm gonna move on to ventilation real quick. So again, now it's super sealed up. We have to get the air in and out. The house doesn't need to breathe, but the people, well, it does, but it needs to breathe like the people in it need to breathe, which is through dedicated breathing holes, not aspirating through every pore. So this is what you can do. You can put in heat recovery ventilators or energy recovery ventilators. Those are your two best options for getting air in and out of the house. They're what's called balanced air exchange systems, which might actually be code. I think they are code in California. I don't know about Washington and Oregon. Anybody?
I don't know if they're code, but you get a lot of energy points for having them. And it probably, I'm not, we were so far ahead of the last code iteration that I didn't really study what's required or not, but you do get points for them. I know at least that in Washington.
Right on. And I will say, so one of some people call it a benefit. I call it a real PIA, but I'm on the 2020 or 2024 International Energy Conservation Code Consensus Committee because they need a token representative from affordable housing construction. But what I can tell you is that these things, the balanced air exchange systems, are written into the next version of the IECC. It is up to your state whether or not they adopt it completely or adopt it with little tweaks or a lot of tweaks. But down the line, these are coming. So this is one of the things that if you're not doing it already, you might want to start talking to your HVAC guy about what it's going to cost, how he's going to run it, what system he recommends, get a couple of views in there, a couple of different guys or gals. But
And once you figure them
basically,
out, they are pretty volunteer friendly to run because it's simple
yeah.
ducting.
Yeah, the key thing with these, like the reason that they fail you is when the homeowner doesn't understand them. I cannot stress this enough. I have been into habitat houses that have molded after 3 years, that their windows are sweating. And the reason is never because this piece of equipment isn't working. It's because the home buyer is unfamiliar with it. They have never used anything like this before. Possibly the tech didn't set it up right and it was too cold or too hot or not quite working right. So they just shut it all the way off. Or if you have kids and you put this at a normal level, they're going to shut it off. It's going to happen. So, if you take nothing away from this, if you're going to use one of these air exchange systems, make sure the home buyer understands how important it is and just the basics, just to how to make sure it's on. And running. So all it does is it uses a central core. You can see the cores here to use the incoming air, the fresh air that's pulling in from outside to condition the dirty exhaust air that's pulling out of your house. And in the case of an energy recovery ventilator, it can take some of the heating and cooling out of that air as well. I mean, the moisture, it can take the energy out of the moisture. It is not really dehumidifying. I mean, it provides a little bit of dehumidification, but don't rely on it to do all of it. But anyway, the point is, it uses energy very efficiently to make sure that whatever air is being dumped into your house from the outside isn't too hot or too cold or too wet. And everybody has a nice day. Even if you do have these, the point source ventilation is still super important. Again, only if the homeowner knows and loves it. But still, exterior vented range hood. Some people don't do that, but please do. Pretty much everybody does bath fans, but the kitchen one sometimes gets not enough love. So here are just some other pieces of all electric stuff that you might see when you're gearing up for solar. So this is an induction stove. There are a handful of affiliates that are using induction stoves right now. It hasn't been for very many years. Roaring Fork Valley in Colorado. I think there is a California affiliate who's using them right now. So, but the name escapes me. Anybody in the room using induction stoves? They're expensive and you need specific kinds of pots and pans, but I understand they're truly awesome. So if you want to talk to Roaring Fork about how that's going for them, I can put you in touch with them. EV chargers, not a bad idea to rough that in. And then this is what the inverter looks like. That's how much space it's taking up. It's kind of hard to tell, actually. There's no scale, really. It's not a lot of space. And then here's a battery backup system from one of the, again, this is another Roaring Fork example of a battery backup, and getting an idea of how much space that can take up. Where those sexy little Tesla units are still quite prohibitive. So for the time being, there's these monsters. And then of course, all electric dryers is something that's becoming more common. I want to check the time here. Oh my gosh, am I over time? I think I feel like I'm over time.
No, you've got about, I was just gonna give you, I was
All
about
right.
to give you a 10-minute head up, but it's about 7 minutes left.
Thank you. I'm going to scoot on then. And again, you guys will have access to this afterwards. So if you don't know any of this and want to look back on it, feel free. So this is the very basics of making your house solar ready. We already kind of went over a bit of that, but if you just check these off your list, the home will be way better prepared to actually install the physical system later on than otherwise. Here are just a few examples of a couple of colder climate houses putting it all together. Again, I know that there's California's in the room, which has like 17,000 climate zones. And Hawaii might watch this later, and they've just got one very specific climate zone. Well, two. Anyway, examples of how affiliates have put it all together. So this is North Central Connecticut. You can see that the thing I like about this is you can see how much space they gave their heat pump water heater. You can see how much space they're reserving for their future installation inverter. They do zero energy ready. They don't do zero energy. And then they build with insulated concrete form all the way 2 stories up. So interesting construction style they've got there. Kalamazoo Valley, more typical habitat construction, ranch, stick framed. But they still hit some really good numbers. They still are they're ready to go solar when the time comes. This is a little bit about, so what we looked at was just how to do it. If you want to get there, that's a couple of ways to get there. There are a lot of options within that. And if you want to dial it in for your affiliate, give me a call. We can work through some options based on where you're at right now and where you want to be. But again, if you want to qualify for some of the funding sources I'm going to tick through in just a second, the thing to take away from this is the Zero Energy Ready Home Program certification from the Department of Energy, because that's likely going to be, not for sure yet, but very likely going to be the program of choice for federal funding. California, yours is going to be weird and different. So is Minnesota's. You're not alone. We always have to be the most special people in the room. So there are going to be some tricks to getting that certification for California and Minnesota, and actually Wisconsin too, because we can't do anything they don't want to copy. So just keep in mind that there's a big paperwork component to just doing the basic stuff that we just talked about. If the federal government can make it more arduous, please believe they will, and this is how they'll do it. And this is like a discussion for a whole nother session to go through this step by step. And how to get this done and what checklists you need to pay attention to. But the thing that I think is most important is to get something called a Home Energy Rating System Rater on board, HERS Rater. California, you guys have these, even though they do it a little bit different thing. They can help you chart this out. And again, you might find a HERS Rater that's like, don't do that. That is crappy. But your thing will have to be like, I want to qualify for $150,000, 25% forgivable loan or 50% forgivable loan or totally forgivable loan for this stuff. And we need this certification. So just know that this is out there and we can talk more about it later, but let's not waste a ton of time. It's very, very dependent on your climate zone. So when you get this and what your current code adoption of IECC is. So when you get this presentation, you can click on these. If you don't already know what your climate zone is or where you're at in the IECC code cycle, you can figure that out here. if you want to kind of, once you figure out your climate zone, if you want to go through and see what you need to hit in order to make the certification, you can find all your R values in this chart here. Again, I wouldn't worry too much about what all this crap means. If you work with your HERS rater and your building supplier, like if you go to a lumber yard or whatever, be like, hey, I'm climate zone 4. I need these things for my windows. I need this for my wall insulation. They should know. And if they don't, you can just give them tell them to text me. Heating and cooling efficiencies are here. So again, you can just share this slide with your plumber or your HVAC guy, and your infiltration is on the bottom there. So for Zero Energy Ready, for that certification, you do need to hit higher numbers than probably any of you are hitting right now for code. But as we've learned, some of you are already well beyond that. And then this is just a little bit about the HERS rater I mentioned uses an energy rating index called the HERS index, but there are lots of them. In fact, if you're in Washington or Oregon, you have a different system, which I think it's called, what's it called, somebody? I'm sorry. Energy. It's another certification program. Shoot, I don't remember.
Yeah, and it's slipping my mind too, but because we don't worry about it because we're
Yeah,
blow it
because
out of
you're
the
far beyond that. But it's a nice benchmarking system. The lower the number on that scale, the more efficient your house is. Once you're at 0, your house is making as much energy as it it's producing as much energy as it needs to run itself. And you can actually go below 0, and then you're selling energy back if you're in a place that allows you to do that. So this benchmarking process, this HERS index or some energy rating index, is pretty important in the world of proving to funders that you are building a super efficient house. And this is just what it entails. Any energy rating index is going to require site visits from some third-party verifier. They're going to look at framing, installation. They're going to make sure you're not doing this thing or this thing over here. They're going to test the house, which also includes your ventilation system. And they're going to dump it all into a computer program and give you your energy rating. These are just the checklists that you are going to want to become familiar with if you want to do Zero Energy Ready stuff. And then this is sort of the process that helps you get yourself set up right to get that certification. Now I want to talk really quickly about funding. So IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, big federal legislation, billions and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. They generously reserve 40% for disadvantaged communities. It's like, that's not even half, bro. But anyway, we'll take what we can get, I guess. So here are the different funding streams that are available to Habitat affiliates. Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is run by the EPA. HFHI has applied. We were awarded to one of the pots under Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. We also applied to Solar for All. I'll talk, there's another slide that gets into detail about this, but we were also awarded under that. But please, the huge takeaway is you do have local awardees for all of this. And so HFHI is not your only option. We'll be rolling out a lot more information about this in the coming months, but there's a lot of money out on the table right now, you guys, for this stuff. It is hard to overstate how much money, even at only 40%. Just this slide right here represents literally almost $100 billion of stuff, of money for us, for affordable housing. So it's a lot. We just gotta stay on top of it. Your state energy offices, all of you will be rolling out programs that give you rebates for the mini split, for the heat pump water heater. This year, brand new, hot off the presses, the Section 48E is something that Habitat affiliates can take as a direct pay. So you file taxes, even though we don't have tax liability, you can file the tax for if you install solar and get up to 70% of that money back. So this is a new cost recovery option. And places like Minnesota and Virginia are already doing this at the state ASO level. They're running programs where they're going to be taking that money back. So it's already happening. And then Here are some grants that are coming up, again, through the EPA that will be available for ASOs and affiliates to apply for, to do clean energy and climate related stuff. But not all of that is quite ready for prime time just yet. Here's a more detailed slide on what you can do with this money. So again, NCIF is what Habitat was awarded for. We will have around $200 million to spend on financing. So that'll be partially or totally forgivable loans for zero energy construction. This middle bucket here, that's TBD, but it's going to be for you, but we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. It's going to be a bit more flexible. Net zero new construction for sure, but also there might be some other like community engagement stuff you can do. And then solar for all is literally putting the panels on your house, either giving you the money to find somebody to put it on or sending someone to you to put the panels on for free. Again, here are the agencies that were awarded. Power Forward is the agency that Habitat is a part of, and Grid Alternatives. A lot more agencies were awarded under Solar for All, but it's like 75, so I wasn't about to put them all there. Just know, and the dust is settling on all of this, so we don't know really how this money is going to start rolling out, but just know that it's going to be coming really soon, and we want to make sure that we're ready to get it. And so just really quickly to go back one, at this bottom bucket of color right here is things for you to consider as an affiliate or an ASO to get yourself ready to spend this money. So take a look at that when you have time. And if you have questions or want ideas, give me a call and we can go through it together. So here's how your state rebates are going to look. So that was that bucket that's coming through your state energy office. Click on this. It'll take you directly to a website where you can click on your state and see if they've already submitted their plan to the DOE for how they're going to roll these out. It's still all happening right now. Things are supposed to be done by fall, but in the meantime, you can check what it might look like where you are. And again, here's some information on that tax filing thing. But if you really want to dial it in, let me know and we'll connect you with Virginia or Minnesota, and you can talk directly to them about how they're making it happen. Here are the two grants, the other EPA grants, environmental justice stuff I talked about. Again, this is all still developing, but you can click on these links here that'll take you right to the program pages, and you can figure out if this is something that might be interesting for you. That's it. That was a lot. I totally screamed through that last bit.
No, thank you so much. I could spend all day going through this. So,
Awesome.
You're on mute, Chris, if you said something else.
there we go. I found it. So yeah, no, I could spend all day. Really appreciate it. Any questions for Molly?
I thought it was a great presentation. Just thank you. I'm excited to share some of the slides about the funding specifically with our grant portfolio director to look through and make sure we're tapping everything. I'm sure she's on top of it, but it's always good to just check in.
Yeah, I saw a hand up from Tina. Oh, well, clapping. Okay, wrong.
Nice.
Yes. So yeah. No, thank you so much, and hopefully,
Absolutely.
we can have you here again. And yeah, really appreciate the time and the information.
Anytime. I'm gonna load this newer version into the Google Drive, and I'll drop the link before we're done.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Molly. And we'll be sure I'll share the resources out with everyone after the call. And there are a few little follow-up points I want to ask you that you mentioned during the presentation, just so I can share with other folks as well. So I'll follow up with you.
For sure.
Just
Very
to double
cool.
check, no one has any questions for Molly?
It was a ton of stuff. I went through it at breakneck pace, so no worries.
Cool. Well, I'm going to hit stop recording, and Chris, you can take us through the rest of the agenda.